Now, we've already talked about artists known for their art and in reference to artists known through literature. Now, I just want to go back to artists known for their art and just review as to what the evidence is for some of these attributions of art and artist. So, first of all, when we talk about Sonam Gyaltsen and Atelier in the 15th century, all of that is based on a singular example. It's 11-faced, thousand-armed Avalokiteshvara sculpture with a long inscription on the base, on the lotus base, and it names the artist, it names the two donors, and it names who the actual sculpture is intended for as a kind of a gift or donation. And from that inscription, we get the name Sonam Gyaltsen. And from that, we're able to then compare that sculpture to dozens and dozens of other sculptures from the same time period, and then make the claim, the assertion that these are all either by the same artist or at least by the same atelier, and we now have a name to go by, and that's why this group of sculpture from the 15th century are named Sonam Gyaltsen or Sonam Gyaltsen Atelier. It's because of one inscription. Now, for Kensei Chenmo and the Kenri style of painting, that is all based on historical information, historical literature, historical documents about the founding and the building of Gonkarchode Monastery, and how Kensei Chenmo was involved with planning, designing, and actually painting many of the murals on the first, second, and third floors. So that's the murals of Kensei Chenmo are based on historical documents and evidence. The Mentongpa, the one example of Menri, we actually have two examples of Menri. I'll put the second one up shortly. But we have the one, really it's a kind of gold ground Hevajra, and it has an inscription on the back saying it's by Mentongpa, but we don't know if it's Mentongpa the senior or one of his children or grandchildren. So it's very difficult to say. Personally, I think it's more likely to be the son or later, because stylistically it looks like early 16th century rather than being 15th century and the period when Mentongpa was at his prime in terms of painting. Now, the Trenkawa, in the 16th century, we have a sketchbook by Trenkawa. That's just one object, but we know of Trenkawa very well through history, through literature, especially the writings of the second and third Dalai Lama. And Trenkawa was kind of like a court artist for the second, for the Labrang, for the house. The institution of the early institution before it became a big political organization. Now, Choying Dorje, we have a number of examples, and there are also some of them are inscribed, both painting and sculpture, well documented in Tibetan literature, history, and on the paintings and sculpture themselves. Now, the Garu Pandita Lobsang Sherab. Garu Pandita is from, he studied in central Tibet, but then he's actually from Amdo, he's from the Rebkong area. Now, I first looked at murals of Garu Pandita back in the early 2000s, I think 2003, February even. And I was looking at some murals, but since then we've identified the artist, and we've identified a number of paintings, scrollwork paintings, and this is done primarily through students of mine and others who do work in the area, and being in touch and in contact with actually the family descendants of Garu Pandita Lobsang Sherab. And by doing that, they've been able to look at family paintings that are by their ancestor Garu Pandita from the 17th, 18th century, and they're able to identify quite a number more works, of which we do not have all of them up on the HAR website as yet. Now, Zanabazar Yeshe Dorje. So this is the famous Zanabazar from Mongolia, and we have many examples. We have many examples of his painting in the Zanabazar Museum, and we have many examples of his sculpture. Now, we don't know what he made in terms of sculpture. It's most likely he commissioned the sculpture, helped design the sculpture. But in terms of painting, there is a tradition that he actually painted. And so we have a number of these that are referenced in historical writings, in biographies, and oral transmission, and they're believed to be the paintings of Zanabazar Yeshe Dorje, and can be seen in the Zanabazar Museum in Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, which I've seen many of these on display there. Now, as for Diomar Geshe, we only have one example on the Har website. It's a Yutok Yuntungompo, what's regarded as one of the first physicians of Tibet. Some traditions maintain that there's a Yutok Yuntungompo number 1 and a Yutok Yuntungompo number 2, and then some people dispute that and say there's only one Yutok Yuntungompo. So anyway, the example we have is based on the scholarship of Gendun Tempa. Gendun Tempa is, I believe, the top Tibetan art historian working in China. Very accomplished, specializing in both painting and sculpture and historical research, excellent researcher. And he's identified this as a Diomar Geshe, but he's also compared it with other works that are in the possession of the descendants in the family of Diomar Geshe, of which they apparently hold quite a number. So this is not my research at all. This is Gendun Tempa, who's making these pronouncements about this painting of Yutok Yuntungompo. Now, as for Kunsik Chukunawa, we have two paintings. Both have his name on the back as attesting to the artist, and both of these paintings were identified as belonging to Situ Penchen Chukijungne some decades ago, but no, they've now been understood to be Kunsik Chukinawa, the 8th Drukchen. And there will be more, because he tended to put his name on the reverse of his paintings, and he painted a number of small works for close disciples. Basically, they're meditational thangkas. Now, as for Kazi Lasso and the research is really Gendun Dampa and myself. We've been working on this for about 15 years, more than 15 years. And Gendun Dampa came up with the actual name. Kazi Lasso is not his name, but he came up with also the names of the two brothers, and he found them in the biography of Tatsak Rinpoche, the one who died, I think, in 1810, and a big important Gelug Tulku from Chamdo. And so Gendun Dempa has triangulated and discovered that this Kazi Lasso, towards the end of his life, was based out of Kazi village under the auspices of Triap Monastery. And my job in the last 15 years or more has been to identify in foreign collections as many Kazi Lasso and Kazi Lasso atelier and Kazi Lasso copies as possible. And Gendun Tempa has discovered that there are a large number of also original Kazi Lasso compositions still in the holdings of Triap Monastery. Now, I have not seen these myself, but according to Gendun Tempa, there are a number of paintings there. Now, Trehor Namkhagen in Atelier. Trehor Namkhagen is of course, he's from Trehor, but he lived primarily in Ganze and in the Dege region of sort of eastern Kham. And he's very famous, and there was a publication done maybe 10 years ago that highlights his works. A big coffee table Chinese Tibetan book, And he's quite well known, except for we don't know his precise dates. Now, the people of Kangze area, they prefer to think that he was a student of the fifth Dalai Lama. I like to think that he's 19th century, and Gendon Dampa likes to think that he's late 19th century, possibly even into early 20th century. So there's a tremendous range of dates based on scholars, and we've just not been able to nail it down yet as to his precise dates, but I think it is safe to say that he is 19th century. It's just a question of where. I'm leaning more mid-19th century, and Gendon Dampa is late 19th century. So that's well understood and there's a tremendous number of paintings of Trehor Namkha again that can be found regionally in those areas. Now, Techchok Dorje, 14th Karmapa, we only have one example, and that's a painting with his name on the back of it that attests to him being the artist. So this is just a little bit of going over some details of how we come up with paintings and artists known for their art, and what is the evidence. So we'll leave it there. You can subscribe. You can join Haran Patreon. You can also make a donation on the homepage of Himalayan Art Resources.